Hi, everybody. I'm Dan Wells. I write horror, fantasy, and science fiction, and I talk about teddy bears on the internet. Today, we are talking about a role playing game that is all about teddy bears. It's called Knights of Underbed, and it is a delightful little game in which the player characters are stuffed animals that come to life at night to protect their children, the kids that love them, from the evil monsters that live under the bed. It is a super cool, super minimal game by Ben Warner, and I'm excited to talk about it. As you can see, the art is just adorable and delightful, and it's fantastic. Let's take a look at the big PDF and dig right into this. This game is based on the Tiny D6 engine from Alan Barr and Gallant Knight Games, and the basic. I mean, I can tell you the rules of Tiny D6 in 30 seconds. Every test that you take uses 2d6, two six-sided dice. If you have disadvantage, you only roll 1. If you have advantage, you get to roll 3. If any of those dice rolls a 5 or a 6, you succeed. There are 4 actions you can take in combat and a bunch of traits to help differentiate your character, and that's it. There you go. Play. It's a fast-playing, minimalist role-playing system that is a lot of fun, easy to teach, easy to run, and Knights of Underbed might be my new favorite one. Beach Patrol has had that crown for a long time. Knights of Underbed is just a sheer delight. So let's take a look at character creation so you can see what's going on here under the hood of the Nighty Knights. Gotta find the right page. Here we go. So the first thing you do when you are creating your knight, your Nighty Knight, is you think about which kid you belong to, which is just a wonderful way of adding some personality to your character. Is your kid imaginative? Well, then you've got this very interesting list of traits to choose from that can change what you do and how you do it. Or maybe your kid is a brave kid, or a friendly kid, an athletic kid, a big kid, a prepared kid. The prepared kid is the kind who, you know, gets some cardboard and some tinfoil and makes a suit of armor for their bear, and then you can have Armor Master as one of your traits. This is the kid that always has a flashlight. There's choosing what kind of kid you belong to lets you right off the bat change what you're doing, and I love that. Then after you have chosen that, you go to the heritage list. What kind of toy are you? This one includes bears and mammals. So, cats and dogs are on the next couple of pages, and so they have their own things. But let's say you want to be the kind of animal that doesn't show up as one of these heritages. You want to be an elephant or a hippopotamus, or I'm trying to think of the kinds of toys that my kids have downstairs. A lot of elephants in my house. There you go. You've got this. And when you pick a heritage, it gives you a number of hit points. Every attack does 1 damage. And then it gives you a little trait. The trait of the cat, for example, is one of my favorite ones. You have 9 lives. And what you do is at the start of the campaign, you have 9 lives, and you spend 1 to automatically succeed at any check. And they never regenerate, they never replenish. You've just got 9 of them, and you need to be careful. And I love that. So there's a dog. There is a doll, which, as you can see here, includes toy soldiers and action figures. There are birds. Birds are interesting because they can have flight if they want, or they can take a prestige trait, and they basically get to choose. A prestige trait, you can think of it almost like a very small skill tree. There's a whole bunch of normal traits, and we'll look at those in a minute. But then there are prestige ones. So if you have, for example, the beast speaker trait, so you can talk to animals. Maybe you want to talk to the family dog, or there's some mice that live in the walls. Beast speaker lets you talk to them. If you take Beast Speaker, you can then unlock the prestige trait called Archdruid, where you can actually have an animal companion. So maybe that family dog or the gerbil or the hamster or whatever becomes your companion and follows you around when you go under the bed to attack these monsters at night. So that's the bird. They can take a prestige trait, which is awesome. There's reptiles, there's monkeys. I really love the monster because my kids definitely have stuffed toy monsters. And so their little special trait here says you can pass as an evil monster if need be. And you can also take monster traits along with the knight traits, and there's a whole monster section. And so you can do a lot of fun stuff with the monsters where you can pretend to be one of them and trick them, or you can just get access to some of these kind of weirder, creepier traits to do your character. Speaking of the traits, let's look at them. These are incredibly simple, and the very first one on the list is a great example of this, Acrobat. It's up there, no problem. You gain advantage when testing to do acrobatic tricks such as tumbling, long distance jumps, climbing, and maintaining balance. Simple. And that's all that the characters need to have in this game is, you roll 2 dice for everything, but your character is super good at jumping or climbing, so you get to roll 3 dice instead, and that makes you a lot more likely to succeed. So, hooray. It's just such a simple system, and I love it. Bottomless backpack is a lot of fun. There's different large and huge and small, so there's size things that you can have. And then, of course, the prestige traits. Here's that Arch Druid I was talking about, where if you have Beast Speaker, then you can step up and, take an animal companion so that the family ferret or iguana or whatever can follow you around. These are all awesome, and they are a lot of fun. There is magic in the game. There is adventure. Let's look at the monsters real quick. These are example enemies that are exactly the kinds of things kids are afraid of, which is another thing that makes this so fun. So shadows, dead-eyed dolls, possessed toys, the darkness itself that you might have to fight. You can attack the darkness. Slithering snakes, big bad bats. And if we go far enough into here, we will find, I love this one, Not Your Parents. If you've seen Coraline and those creepy, the other mother with the big button eyes, they've got that in here and you can fight it. They also have these kind of named ones. So there's the generic fight the little gremlin, but then there's also the named ones like Opa Nacht, Bloody Mary, the Wendigo, Baba Yaga, the Banshee, La Llorona. There's all of these kind of big supervillain level villains that you can tangle with, which makes this a lot of fun. Now, the last thing that I want to show you are the micro settings. As with all of the Tiny D6 game, this one includes a ton, look at this, is like 12 micro settings. And some of these are actual settings that you can set your game in. Some of them are just suggestions of different ways to play. Some of them are actual adventure scenarios or campaigns. So let's look at some of the different examples of this. So, for example, the core game assumes that you are going to play as a teddy bear, but you don't have to, right? Here is Robots in Disguise. If you want to play as a toy truck or a toy robot, we've got your back. This one down here, Action Heroes, is if you want to play as like a princess doll. And how does that change the flavor or the tone of your game? Little Wars by James Spahn is my favorite of this style of the micro settings in the book because it assumes that you're going to be playing action figures like G.I. Joes or Star Wars guys or superheroes or something like that. And these are different from teddy bears because a teddy bear, you take it into your bed and you sleep with it at night. The action figures, you leave on the floor. Or worse yet, you leave them in the yard or even in your friend's yard. And so some of the adventure ideas in the Little Wars micro setting are things like you're in the neighbor's yard and you've got to make it, what is that? Just 3 or 4 houses down to make it to your own kid's yard again. But for a little 6-inch Iron Man figure, that is a long, long journey and it's going to be hard to do. So it's the same idea. You're protecting your kid, but with a little different flavor, which is fun. Now, some of these games, some of these micro settings, are specific adventure scenarios. So, For example, there is Boogie's Refuge, A Wondrous Tale, Bindy's Last Tusk. My favorite of these is Black Market Grimm and the Despicable Toe Eaters by Monty Murdoch. This one is an adventure that says there's a little goblin, a gremlin named Grimm, and he is stealing toes to sell them on the black market in the great dreamland city of Underbed. And so you, as characters, need to either stop him from stealing your kid's toes, or worse yet, he's already stolen your kid's toes, and he's going to sell them, and you need to go find him, track him down, and get those toes back before the kid wakes up in the morning. So I love this one because it is such a perfect use of the premise, right? It's kind of gross, but also kind of adorable. It's the kind of thing that a 6-year-old is going to be terrified is actually going to happen. They don't want to get out of bed at night because there's something under the bed that's going to eat their toes. Well, now you can be a teddy bear and stop that from happening. One of the really fascinating types of microsetting are the ones that change the game fundamentally. And there's really two of those in here that I want to point out. Swarm Nano projects this whole idea into the future, turning it into a science fiction game. And so instead of being a stuffed bear or something like that, you're actually a high-tech toy. Maybe you are a swarm of nanites, or maybe you are a smart device that's connected to the internet. However it changes, this projects it into the future. The other one, and the best microsetting in the entire book, is Beyond the Fires by Jack Norris. This one takes it all into the past, into the ancient prehistory of the human race, when we didn't yet have stuffed bears, and instead the shamans would create these little kind of caveman charms and give those to the kids to keep them safe from the monsters that lived in the darkness beyond the fires. And so it's the same premise. You are protecting your kid, but with this ancient kind of caveman vibe to it. And everything is slightly different. There's, it includes slightly different types of kids, slightly different traits here and there. And then, of course, the bad guys that you fight are different as well. One of the really compelling ideas in Beyond the Fires is that some of these characters like Opa Nacht and Baba Yaga that are the big supervillains in the modern day, back in the ancient prehistory, they were just kind of no-name little gremlin goblin guys who had not yet gained the power and risen to prominence. And so the big bad of that setting is someone called the Great Child Eater. But you might actually strike an alliance with the very early, very young version of Opa Nacht to overcome the Great Giant Eater, the Child Eater, because this kind of sneaky future supervillain is still just jockeying for power and trying to build his base. So all of these, last one I got to mention the Feverlands, because this, the game takes place in the Dreamlands, right? That underneath every bed is a portal into the Dreamlands where the kids can go and where the monsters come from, and that's where the big city of Underbed is and all this stuff. And so if your kid has a fever, then your kid's dreams get very funky and very weird. And so the Feverlands is a wonderful microsetting to explore that idea of what happens when you're starting to deal with fever dreams and contagious bad guys and things like that. Anyway, all of the microsettings are delightful, and there's a huge variety of things that they do and accomplish and add to your game. So anyway, the Knights of Underbed is just an absolutely wonderful little game. It's the kind of thing that that you can pick up and play just as a one-shot. You can create characters in about 5 minutes and run through one of these scenarios like the Toe Eaters. Or you can play it as a much longer campaign. And there's experience rules for how you can grow over time and how you can gain new traits. And there's just so much variety and so much possibility in it. I cannot speak highly enough of this game. So check it out. Knights of Underbed by Ben Werner. It's a really wonderful game, and I think you will love it as much as I do. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I am Dan Wells, and you are awesome.